So good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Nhu Tram. I'm working at Age Platform Europe, as Sarah said. I'm a research project officer, sorry, and I work on EU-funded projects on links that are, sorry, I'm going, yes.
We can't hear you now. Yeah.
Does it work now?
Now we can hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm a project officer at Age Platform Europe. I work on EU-funded projects that are linked with healthy aging, age-friendly environments, but also technology. So I would like to thank C3-Cloud for inviting me today to discuss about self-management and empowerment, but through the lens of older people. So, okay, so I will give you a few words about what is Age Platform Europe first. So we are a European network of organizations of and for people aged 50 plus in Europe. What we aim to do is to voice and promote the rights and the well-being of older people towards the European institutions. But we also try to raise awareness about the issues that concerns them the most. Therefore, we have created a campaign in 2018 that it's called Aging Equal. You will be able to find it easily on Google if you type Aging Equal. And you will have different themes that are collecting different testimonies of older people about challenges that they are facing every day. It could be ageism and gender, for example, ageism and race, ageism and participation. Well, you can browse through the website and you will probably find a testimony that might help you in your research. So we are working on different policy areas to be able to influence policymakers at the EU level. So it goes through human rights and non-discrimination, quality long-term care and fighting elder abuse, going through gender equality in old age, age-friendly environments and accessibility, employment and active participation, adequate income and social inclusion, but also consumer rights, and healthy aging. So today I was asked to talk about self-management and empowerment, and therefore I had this quote from Robert Johnstone, that illustrated what for him empowerment was. So he said, what needs to happen is for doctors to come down off their pedestal and for patients to get up off their knees. And what we realize more and more often is that we rely a lot on technology to create this new dynamic through which patients and citizens will grab with both hands the self-management of their health. But I will not per se talk about empowerment and how you measure it and so on, but I will more talk about, I will try to explain why older people are not likely to adopt these technologies that were invented for them to be more empowered to be able to self-manage their health. Is it a problem of technology? Is it a problem of the older adults? Is it the problem of the environment? So I will try to go through today with you about different topics and issues that you might need to take into account when, for example, if you're a designer or if you're a researcher, to see if these topics might talk to you and it might help you improve the pathway you're taking to improve technology. So you have to know that older people are not a homogeneous group. So they are the same as the younger ones, where you have 60 to 75, you have 75 to 80, 80 plus. These people do not have the same needs, the same wishes, the same lifestyles, the same expectations. They do not come from the same socioeconomic backgrounds. So most of the time people have, well, the image they have in their mind of older people is that they're all the same, which is badly translated into this technology that we are creating today. some questions needs to be asked from a designer's perspective when they start to design. Are the needs of this diverse group clearly assessed? Are these assessed the real ones, or are they the needs that the people have in their mind? Are they assume these are the needs of all the people. Are they the real ones or not? The people that are involved in the research, do they represent the diversity of these older people or not? Are they involved? Are they listened to? But also, sometimes an older person might not adopt a technology because they do not want a medicalized lifestyle. So it is important to talk to them, discuss with them, but also see how you integrate their feedback into your work. Another aspect that is quite important when you design technology platforms and so on to help older people be more empowered to self-manage their own health is ageism. I'm not sure, I don't know if most of you are aware with this concept, but I will quickly go through it today. So ageism is a prejudice or discrimination against a particular age group and particularly older people. This ageism is translated into 3 different kinds of behavior. We have discrimination, so this is how we act toward older people. We have the stereotype, that is how we think about older people, and the prejudice is how we feel about older people. And this ageism is translated into the technology we are creating today. So all these implicit ideas that you and I have about older people, they are reflected into the developed technology. So, for example, most of the time, we will think of older people in terms of illness, dependency, and decay. We have this spontaneous stereotype of older people as being technologically illiterate and ignorant, and also they don't want to adopt technology. And also we undermine their opinion because we think we know better than them. So what happened, this is a quote of a literature review that I read recently about technology and ageism, is that designers might think most of the time that users who show an initial reluctance and resistance to new technology, but the designer will think that it can be easily overcome. But the problem is that they do not take a step back and rethink of, is it the technology the problem, or is it the older person the problem? So because we think that, well, because the designer think that they know better, they might not take the feedback of the older person as seriously as it should be taken. Another factor that needs to be taken on why certain technologies are not adopted is the affordability. Costs remain one of the most important barrier for technological uptake. I have put a quote of a study we made back in 2012, but it clearly states that a person with 600 euros per month will not be able to afford technology. They will probably decide to pay the rent and food rather than technology. So when making these technologies, it's important to see what is the share of the cost. And this is a discussion that needs to be opened up with the individual, but also the state, the private sector, and see how this can be better integrated to avoid social inequalities as well. Accessibility. There is a list of questions I think designers, researchers need to take to keep that in mind when they have these research projects linking with aging and technology. Is can an older person easily use these new technologies? Is it user friendly? Did you plan an ongoing training? So it's not enough to plan one day to explain technology to an older person. It's important to have one day, and then after maybe 5 days, the older person might request another training because he or she forgot how to put the battery back in. So it's important to plan this ongoing training. It's important to see who will provide this training. Is it a social assistant? Is it a nurse? Is it a neighbor? Is it a local NGO? When the technology is ready for the market, have you planned any long-term technical support? Because let's imagine that an older person has to pay an amount of money for this technology, and then suddenly after 2 years, it doesn't work anymore, or it's not interoperable. What will they do with it at the end? So another question is, are the target users consulted on how to make it more accessible? And the feedbacks they provided, were they properly taken seriously or integrated into this improvement step? And finally, can older people have access to the internet? So we see that more and more often these technologies are interconnected, and they have to share this collected data to a cloud or to, I don't know, a platform and so on, but they need internet for that. How do older people do in rural areas, for example, where the broadband is not well provided? So all these features have to be taken into account onto why certain technologies are accepted, adopted by older adults. 3 more points on that could explain this non-uptake, let's say, is health literacy. As I said before, older people are very diverse. They have different needs, different education background, and so on. So obviously, their health literacy is different from one another. Therefore, if you want to increase health literacy among older people, that might as well improve their empowerment, but also how they want to self-manage their health. Maybe there needs to be a discussion between local NGOs, local governments, social services, GPs, nurses, to be able to, I don't know, implement certain initiatives, local initiatives, to improve this health literacy of older people. Also stigmatization. Imagine you have a certain disability and the technology that was invented might, well, enables other people that is surrounding you to label you as XYZ disability, for example. Personally, I wouldn't like that. Well, it's the same for older people. They are not so different from us. So if you create a technology that is so stigmatizing to them, it's, well, the likeliness that they will adopt it is very small. So it would be good to have, well, to adopt this universal design of technology. And finally, it's the real life conditions. So most of the time in research projects, we will observe the technology, but in a really, in a living lab or a very controlled environment. But what would be interesting is to observe how the technology is really used in real life, but also if they're using another technology that is probably similar to what you're developing. And so if you're creating something pretty similar, they might not use the new one because they're used to the old ones. So it will be good to see what they're already using and then see how you can improve the previous version. So instead of just focusing on the living lab or controlled environments, it would be good to shift that into the real life conditions. Finally, I'd like to finish with some recommendations of the UN independent expert on the enjoyment of human rights for older people. These are recommendations stated about human rights, but also technologies. So, well, assistive technologies, because we're using them more and more often. But it's important to keep that in mind, that technology should not increase social exclusion. So as I said before, older people are very diverse with different economic and socioeconomic backgrounds. So you might have people that will be able to afford your technology, but others that will not be able to buy them. So we have to avoid this, how do you say that in English? This two-speed society, do you say that? To avoid, well, we have to be able to provide equal access to assistive technologies to all adults and all the population. So there comes again the discussion of what is the share of the cost between the state, the individual, the private sector. it's also important to give the choice to the older adult to accept or not this technology. And if they do not accept it, what is the alternative? Will you either adopt it, integrate certain features that will maybe not fringe their privacy, for example? And if they don't want technology at all, what is the other option? So the important is not to only focus on technology. Also, we know that technology is collecting a lot of data, and we don't know what is being done with this data. So it's important to explain clearly what you intend to do with this technology, and let them keep control over these information. And finally, well, as I said, technology should not replace human care, and should not substitute the state's obligation to support older people. My last slide, yes. So I would like to inform you that the German presidency of the EU is planning the adoption of Council conclusion on human rights, participation and well-being of older persons in the era of digitalizations. They are planned for 13th of October. So if you're seeking what the conclusions will be, keep an eye on what the German presidency will say. I think, yeah, some sources.